Oh, dear, life's tough. Oh, Sib, life is hard. Oh, woe. Woe is the itchy elephant. The elephant that itched. I think I shall write a children's book about it. And on each page, the little elephant will find a new way to scratch. Oh, he's given up. Given up the ghost. Yes, that's right. God, I know. An African grebe pigeon feeding its baby. How cool is that? That's why I wanted to risk this signal patch to feed this baby. No, it doesn't look comfortable at all.
His back leg is not in a good space. Aaron, I'm not sure. The lesions, looks like it might be abscesses. I don't think the beating that this guy's had is the first one, but that back right leg is dripping. Unless he's urinated on it, it looks like it's an open wound there, and he's really not putting any weight on it.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Madikwe Game Reserve, where, the action has already started. We have come to the dam named after the elephants, and lo and behold, they are here. The water looks so blue. It is just an illusion, though, I must say, and the sky is blue, the sun is shining, it is just perfect. Good morning, my name is Lauren, everyone, and I do have Rian on camera. We're coming to you live from Madikwe, and we're going to stay at this dam and see what comes down to drink. It's hopefully going to be an immersive experience where we can get into lots of discussions and watch the world as it goes by. Amazing. It didn't take them long to arrive, 9:30. It's obviously thirsty work being an elephant. Leo, Ellie's for the start of Escape to Nature. I know, isn't it just amazing? We were sitting here on the sunrise safari and we had one bull, but there was no sign of any herds, and of course they've just appeared. They're not going in. It's probably really cold. The sun hasn't warmed up the water yet, so you can see that they're not going in. They're all just standing there. They might get in their feet wet, but they're not going in, that's for sure. We have come here every day because we're now staying in a location where it's actually easy to get to Clodagh. We will be moving back to the east in a few days, so we just want to make the most of this dam because it's highly unlikely that we will come here. We may occasionally come here, but it's very far. It's a good 45 minutes, if not more, journey to get here from the east, so we may not come. Okay, what a spectacular start. I can only hope it's going to get better. But for now, we're going to send you over to Ralph to say good morning.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Escape to Nature, where I'm coming to you live from the dam camera at the Okukuyu Waterhole in the Etosha National Park in Namibia. What a wonderful waterhole this is indeed. If you've never seen it before, well, it might seem a little bit quiet for now, but I tell you what, stick around because I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of animals coming down for a drink. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and I'm sure we're going to be escaping to nature with all sorts happening today. Seems like there's already quite a bit of action there with Lauren in Madikwe. It's a bit of a for us here in Etosha, but that doesn't mean to say that there's nothing going on at all. I bet you just on the other side of the waterhole here, on the other side, now I'll just get my controls in order here, and we'll go in nice and close, because whenever it's quiet, especially in the early mornings, the birds then take advantage of that, and they come in just on the opposite end of the waterhole there, in amongst those stones. So I'm going to try and go in quite a bit closer, and we'll just see if our focus holds up, because very often you'll have doves. Okay, so like I was saying, just going in on the opposite side of the waterhole, and also if you listen nice and carefully, you'll be hearing that whoop-a-doo, whoop-a-doo. These are those little Namakwa sandgrass, which are very, very interesting birds indeed. And the males in particular, they'll be coming down to the waterhole here and soaking their chest feathers in the water. And they can often carry up to and more than 200 milliliters of water just in their chest feathers. And some of the interesting information I'm going to share with you, but I just want to see if we can get in a little bit closer, see if we can actually spot some of those little birds that are making those calls. It's quite difficult. They're in amongst and in between these stones on the other side, where we've gone in a little bit too far. So we would have been able to see them nice and clearly there. But let's just get this right here. So you can see in amongst the calcrete, getting a nice close-up view of that. You know, that's been broken up a bit by the animals moving around. That would have been through the ages, through hundreds, if not thousands of years, that broken up. That would have been the basis of the Etosha Pan itself when it was an inland sea, previously fed by the river. Top there, very good hiding points for the lions when they come down. Jackals too, They use that as points to hunt from. And very often they come down hunting these Namaqua sandgrass and doves that come and feed and drink along the edge of this waterhole itself. So there was a little birdie there. You'll also see Namaqua doves that do come down and drink as well. So just in between the rocks. That's why we do have to have quite a close look in there. I don't see any for now, but I can hear them. So they must be in and around there somewhere. And I've seen on many occasions the jackals coming down to hunt them, especially at this time of the morning. I just want to see if we can't get a view on any of them before we discuss a little bit further. There's a black spot. They're just going along the edges there. They're very well camouflaged too, so I can't see any clearly for now. Anyway, let's zoom back out again so we get a bit of a better impression of the entire waterhole itself. So you see what I talk about there as well. Those logs in the background are excellent hiding points for predators coming down, especially when they're coming for a drink themselves, but very often they take advantage of this point where all animals who come to drink. So I've had many lions hiding behind those points and actually making kills at this particular site. So let's just go back. As we can hear these Namaqua sandgrass, but we just can't see them for now. Difficult to move the camera around. So let's just get a nice viewpoint once again. And as we're listening to them, the sandgrass, in fact, do belong to the family Pteroclidae and are represented in southern Africa by one genus, which is the Pterochles, which comprises 4 species. It's the Namaqua, the Burchell's, the yellow-throated, and the double-banded sandgrass. And in fact, they have evolutionary affinity with waders, which is very special because it's a group of birds with obvious aquatic origins, but which has given rise to other terrestrial arid adapted families such as the coursers and some of the plovers, or as we now know them, lapwings. And sandgrass are well adapted to many of the harshest deserts of the world. And in southern Africa, the distributional ranges of all 4 species extend into the deserts. And one of them, which we're looking at and listening for here, is the Namaqua sandgrass, and it's a true desert species occurring in all 4 desert biomes in southern Africa. And a Professor Gordon McLean of the Department of Zoology and Entomology at the University of Natal, Pietermaritzburg, has perceptively pointed Okay, so just carrying on what the topic that I was talking about on the sandgrass and the basic anatomical and physiological equipment evolved by the waders for the waterside, especially the marine waterside, are the very same features that have pre-adapted them to the deserts of the world. That is very, very interesting because obviously having come from a marine waterside background, it has now evolved them to be perfect for the desert, which is very interesting indeed. And I just love watching these guys. I must tell a story that I have said before, but once I was driving with guests in the area of Damaraland and it was on the western side of Etosha itself. As I was driving, I saw birds coming in a flock from the front, and so I slowed down, but they were moving our direction and they didn't turn in time. And one of the birds actually hit the side of the window on the passenger side. And as a result, I realized that it was an Namako sandgrass because there was so much water that splattered over the car. I don't think that I injured the bird because I think it was in the motions of turning as we bumped it, but it came into the side of us. And just the amount of water that was actually sprayed onto the car was incredible. So they actually do this and they soak those feathers, fly back, and the little chicks will then drink from there. And the chicks in particular, they hatch precocial. They're able to move around and forage for seeds within minutes, which is incredible for an animal to be able to do that. And now, as I said previously, it might seem like it's a little bit quiet here at the waterside, but it's never long before we have lots of animals coming down. And so here we have the Burchell's zebra, the plain zebra, and as always, making their way into the water, not scared of the water itself, as you might find with animals that are a lot of water holes across Africa, but that's from their evolutionary adaptation and their learnings of there being danger lurking within the water. Now here in Etosha, there are there's no crocodiles, and so there's nothing for them to worry about that might attack them from the water itself. So you actually then find them walking into the water and going almost into the middle sometimes. And trying to get to a bit more of the fresher water in the middle of the water hole itself, where there being a lot of sort of kicking up of the mud next to the water. So they walk into the middle to get a bit of fresher water. Let's just go in a little bit. So Lenny, those Abdon storks, yes, you must have been watching for a while. Yeah, they definitely came down on a regular basis for an amount of time. And I would say that they've probably headed up more to Central Africa side as they do sort of migrate quite a bit. And if I'm not mistaken, that's where they would have headed back. And a lot of the migratory birds now have left or in the process of leaving. Some of the late leavers do include some of the swallows and the swifts, but generally most of the cuckoos and the kingfishers would have left now already, the storks as well. And they'll always move sort of according to the resources and also their life cycle to breed or just to feed. It depends on then when they arrive and when they leave. Take, for instance, the Easter falcon or the Amur falcon, as well as the yellow-billed kites. They only come to southern Africa and to these parts for feeding at this time of year, and they return to their sort of respective homes. The likes of the lesser striped swallows, they'll be here for breeding. And they'll only leave once the youngsters, the chicks, have fledged, and then they'll return. So there's a little bit more holding them back here. And it depends on how early they got here, how quick they were able to make their nests and breed, and then teach the youngsters how to fly and fledge before they return back. Whereas the migratory birds that have just come for feeding they're not held down by those sort of instances where they need to wait for the youngsters to learn how to fly, etc.
Wild Earth family, we need you to become a Wild Earth explorer so we can continue bringing the magic of nature to people all over the world who can't afford to pay. Everyone deserves the right to enjoy nature. Please help us make a difference by paying a small monthly amount. Join us in giving back to our planet by supporting this worthy cause. Let's forge a special connection between people and nature, inspiring conservation efforts worldwide.
Sadly, the herd has moved off. Excuse me, everyone. There was lots of drama just here right now. They moved from the other side of the dam all the way to here to get some of the freshest water, but sadly they've gone off. But in the background, right behind that dead leadwood, we do have kudu. All the females are on the wall, and you can just see the male making his way down to drink. Look at that. We'd only ever be able to view them from far away. Kudu are even more nervous around waterholes than zebras are. Just not comfortable. Too vulnerable. But it's nice that we can view them from far away. I've just had to put some sun cream on. Although it's windy, you can really feel that that sun is actually quite intense behind the wind. I don't want to get wrinkly like these elephants, so sun cream is on, but it's warming up nicely. But don't forget to send in all your wonderful questions. We have the time during Escape to Nature for more discussions. Get a little bit deeper. The sunrise and sunset safaris are a little bit more faster paced. So anything you want to discuss, let us know. I think Rianne and I probably will sit at Clodagh for most of the day, just because we know it will get spectacular. We've already had one elephant herd come in, kudus over there, warthogs all around the periphery, and I just know it's going to continue to get busier and busier. So because we're staying stationary, letting nature come to us, it means we can chat more. If you're a regular viewer, then you will know that I love a good discussion. Nothing beats it. There's always one, Ellie, that never wants to leave the water. Always one. Normally it's the younger boys. And they know the herd's moved on. They just don't want to leave. They're having too much fun. They'll be able to hear the herd. Gotta love this radio. I don't know if it's stubbornness or defiance or what, but the young boys, the slightly older boys, teenage boys, just never want to leave.
So we just had a couple of black-faced impala that came down for a drink after those zebra left. And they're endemic to Namibia as well as southern Angola. You won't find them anywhere else in the world. And so they're a lovely species to look at and make for very, very beautiful photos as well. But as with a few of these other species that we do find in this particular environment, one of the species that does occur here, and we often see them at night in the Etosha National Park at these waterholes, particularly so at the Halali camp, which is in the middle of the reserve, is brown hyena. And they're also pretty well adapted to an arid or semi-arid environment. And as Lauren might tell you, she's also seen quite a few in Madikwe, which is a semi-arid environment, and they do very well in those particular areas compared to the spotted hyenas, which do much better where there's more water availability. And one of the most important adaptations displayed by brown hyenas, and one which has permitted them to penetrate the most arid deserts more successfully than, as we say, the spotted hyenas, is their fruit-eating behavior. And it's amazing to see. I've seen it many times in the desert itself, in Namibia. And the tsama melon and the gemsbok cucumber are the two main fruits in their diet. So the former having a water content of more than 90%. If eaten in sufficient quantities, the melons are also a good source of food. 22 of them yield the equivalent energy of 1 kilogram of fresh meat. So eating 22 melons, pretty much 1 kilo of fresh meat. But Dr. Gus Mills estimates that almost half the diet of a lactating female brown hyena consists of fruit. Would you believe it? One night, a single brown hyena was observed to eat 18 tsama melons. As each melon weighs between 300 and 700 grams, the animal could have ingested as much as 11 liters of water. So that's one of these special adaptations that you'll find from the animals that live in these water scarce environments. And let's just go in here and look at one of the true specialists, and that being our national animal here in South Africa, the springbok. And it's a shame, really, because now currently there's more springbok found in Namibia than there are in South Africa, where there used to be millions upon millions in the Karoo, and they used to go on their migratory routes and labeled the Trekbokken, where the accounts from people there, when they were on their migrations, they couldn't even come out of their houses. There were so many springbok. But now they've sort of been isolated up in the Namib, where their real stronghold now is. And in Etosha, it's incredible when you do see some of the numbers coming down to the water to drink. This is just a small group of them. And very often you can have hundreds into thousands of them actually coming down. And so Etosha also then home to the cheetah, and they obviously predominantly feed on springbok, and it's a perfect size for them to take down. But we have seen on the Amakhala Game Reserve with those three amigos, they've started to take down a lot bigger prey. But in general, cheetah would prefer something a little bit smaller, such as springbok, and they run less risk if they take down smaller animals like this. So those three amigos on Amakhala are doing very well, but they're taking big risks, taking down big animals. So I just hope that it's not a sign that sooner or later one of them is going to get injured, because with that big risk, yes, does come big reward, but the risk remains for injuries, especially if they're taking down big kudu bulls, red hartebeest, adults, eland adults. Yeah, I think it's almost only a matter of time before one of them does get injured. But time will only tell. But here in the Etosha National Park, I've never seen cheetah taking down such big prey as those ones there in Amakhala. In fact, those three amigos have taken down bigger prey than I've ever seen cheetah take down. So that's all new to me. Generally, they'll take down steenbok, springbok, and then sort of calves and foals of animals, the bigger animals from zebra to blue wildebeest, etc. But generally, they also don't do that either, because the adults are normally very protective over their young, and so they run the risk then of getting injured by one of the adults. So much better idea to take on the likes of springbok. Righty, so there is a little bit more activity here. It looks like there's some oryx that might be coming down for a drink there in the background. And these springbok now look like they're quenching their thirst. So that's wonderful. It's not the only place where we get cheetah and springbok. Another place is Amakhala.
Good morning everybody. Welcome to Escape to Nature on a great day here on Amakhala Game Reserve, which is in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. And it's quite nice. We've started quite well with a group of eland and some zebras all together there. Hello everybody, my name's Andrew Morgan, still behind the camera, and we are in the far eastern part of Amakhala at the moment, hoping to see what we're going to find out over here. Hope everybody's doing well today and excited. I know we very much are. Let's watch them for a few moments. Okay, so it seems like the temperature is starting to get nice and warm now. We expected this today. It's going to be about 31, 30 degrees, somewhere around there. And when we set out this morning, it was very pleasant, not a hint of cold. But now it's slowly starting to spice up and get a bit warmer. Yeah, I must say it's not often that we get to start out here in the eastern part. So we're actually very far to the east compared to sort of where we stay, which is far in the west and a little bit north. There's so much ground to cover here in Amakhala, and that's what I love about it. It's not a small game reserve. This is quite big. Roughly about 9,000 hectares. So you can imagine how many roads there must be, and each single road and area and so on all has names.
Starbuck wants to know what purpose does the neck flap serve on an airline?
Starbuck, thanks for your question. Yeah, that's a cooling mechanism that they have. Well, there's actually two main purposes for that dewlap with eland. So the one is it's a cooling mechanism, lots of blood vessels on the surface of the dewlap, and so when the animal runs, you'll actually see the dewlap bounces. It bounces around very violently, and this cools down the blood vessels, and therefore as the blood travels through there before it hits the brain, that helps to keep the brain adequately cooled. But then also a bit of fat deposit. There's also a kudu inside there, I see. Also fat deposits. So when they're really in good times and lots of rainfall and very rich things to eat, they pick up a lot of condition, and their dewlaps really get elongated. When they start to lose condition, they start going back to sort of the reserves in the body, which is where the fat is stored on their dewlaps. It's interesting that, isn't it? But something else that's interesting about those dewlaps is, you know, the bulls that are in really good condition, their dewlaps are going to be sort of like a visual aid for, you know, the females. The females are going to really be attracted to the male that has got a nice, big, fat, heavy dewlap, because it indicates that he's in good condition. It's just amazing, this area that we're in at the moment, sort of on the foot of a hill at the moment. Just beautiful. Looks like almost like sandstone up there. Daisy, good morning, good morning. Daisy, they were briefly spotted directly north. So that's behind us. Your kilometers, I would say probably less than 3 kilometers away. But then they went hiding very quickly. It was just a very quick look that one of the field guides managed to get this morning. We saw them, was it yesterday we saw them, but for a very brief moment as well. They dropped off into the river line, just off of a drop-off, and they were gone. I hope you got to see them yesterday. If not, then I've got something to do. Maybe this afternoon when they come out, we'll give it a bash. How's that sound? Yeah, it was really cool to see the cubs yesterday. We saw photos of them, and of course they have grown, but when we saw them yesterday, after a long absence of not seeing them, wow, they have really grown, and they're looking good. They were playing with each other and wrestling and mock hunting each other. Not far from this very area where we're at, we have seen secretary birds, a pair of them. And I was chatting to Morgan and then also another field guide who works at Safari Lodge. And we've been just chatting about how active the secretary birds have been over the last, couple of weeks, while at least I've been on this stint. And they're going to slowly head towards nesting again, which will be somewhere in mid-winter. I look forward to that. Can't wait to find another nest. And we are keeping an eye on the original secretary bird nest that you all saw. Can't wait for them to go back there. Oh, these eland are actually looking really healthy. It's always nice to see eland on Amakhala Game Reserve, and there's some nice areas for them, such as this one. They do like the open grasslands, and this is perfect for them. So a lot of the grass eaters, they love this open area where we're at. There's plenty of zebras, there's plenty of warthogs. We actually saw a big one coming in here. Blesbok and impala, they all love it here. Of course, kudu.
So there, as suspected, we have now our Oryx gazella that's come down for a drink. It's joined this group of, for lack of a better word, because they're not really all bunched together. And this one Oryx now, all on its own. Looks like there's some zebra moving around in the background there. It doesn't look like there's too much wind, a little bit of a breeze. Oh, now I've gone out, I'd like to go back in. I want to get closer to this Oryx. It's always wonderful to see the desert animals actually drinking. Like I did see at Kariega Game Reserve, for the first time, ostriches drinking water, which is something you don't see every day. And very often they don't need to drink at all, as with these other desert adapters and the Oryx. If there's water available, of course, they will drink it. They don't need to. And it's our friend with the perfect horns. Lovely and straight. And when there isn't any wind, it does make for beautiful reflections here on the hole itself. And here comes some zebra to join him for a drink there next to the water. And while we're watching them as well, as always, I like to get into a few different concepts. But something that is really important to talk about is the buffered underground river. And this goes across the different species. Wherever there is real fluctuations in temperature from the heat of the day to the coldness of night, particularly so in the desert. And in desert regions, the surface layers of soil and sand absorb solar radiation during the day and lose it at night, paralleling the massive daily fluctuations of the air temperature. Within a few centimeters of the surface, however, the range begins to narrow, and at about 30 centimeters underground, the daily temperature is relatively stable. Not surprisingly, most desert organisms exploit these benign conditions either permanently or only when conditions are particularly severe on the surface, either very hot or very cold. And animals ranging in size from termites to spotted hyenas simply would not survive in the deserts of southern Africa if they could not exploit an underground retreat. Among the permanent residents of the underground realms is the Damara mole rat, which lives at a depth of about 30 centimeters for most of its life. And the largest temperature range it experiences is between 18 degrees Celsius in winter and 34 degrees Celsius. And this is markedly less than a daily range of around 35 degrees centigrade that a tree-dwelling species such as the black-tailed tree rat may have to endure. So very important to be able to go underground where the temperatures remain a very constant. And we see that with a lot of the reptiles as well, from the shovel-nosed lizard to some of its the little beetles, etc., that go into the soil. But we also see that from the aardvarks, the warthogs, the hyenas, and everybody using those underground cavities to go and get into an area where it's not so difficult to keep your body temperature and thermoregulate. As we see now, a little group of zebra coming in to drink. They seem to be bunched up quite closely. But always interesting to see the difference in the way that they approach the water and how they're not scared of it here. Put these same animals into the Kruger National Park or into next to the Zambezi, and they're obviously going to have to worry about crocodiles. So here they don't need to. It's always interesting and lovely to see when they're not scared of water. So those springbok also having had a drink. I think those are the ones that did. They'll be heading off to probably go find some grazing. Same with that oryx. Normally when it's on its own like that, it's normally a territorial male. But so if you look, so we're looking directly west from here. Just a little bit to the northwest from here, there's what they call the Sprokieswoud, which is the phantom tree forest. And they call it a phantom tree because it's actually quite similar to the baobab. Very similar, looks like it's been planted upside down, and very famous at the Halali waterhole. There's just one of those, a very big one. There might be two, but there's one very big one at that waterhole itself. So that's called the Moringa waterhole, after the Moringa ovifolia, which is that big upside down tree. But just here near to Okokoyo, not far. It's always lovely to go on game drive and going to see that phantom tree forest. That's what the common name is. It's the Moringa ovifolia. And when we say forest, it's obvious, it's in the background here, that Mopani. But there are a lot of trees in one area there. And it's just beautiful to go in there. It makes for lovely photos, especially in the early morning as the sun's coming up. And Etosha has some of the best sunrises and sunsets. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but the sun just looks so much bigger in Etosha than anywhere else I've experienced the sunrise or sun in the world. And So if you want some of the best sunrises and sunsets, I would have to say that Etosha is one of those spots to go and experience it. As the zebra now seem to have drunk their fill, and looks like they are indeed. What's going to be for a drink? Or some giraffe. But what we will see is the giraffe sort of moving, zigzagging before they come down. So Jerry, yeah, there is a lot of digging for water in the desert. You find it particularly so in the sort of northwestern wilderness where you have these ephemeral rivers. So all along Namibia is ephemeral rivers. They're seasonal. They only flow after it's rained. And the only permanent rivers in Namibia are in the extreme south and the extreme north. In the south being the Orange River, and the north being the Kunene, and then into Caprivi, obviously with the Zambezi, etc. So everywhere else, you have these ephemeral rivers that cut from the central part of Namibia all the way down to the coast. And with them being ephemeral, they only flow after it rains, but there is a lot of underground water there, and they say that those rivers actually continuously flow, but it's all underground. So are like is in the desert, and a lot of the animals know this, and I think the elephants can actually smell it. So a lot of digging, especially where the underground is very close to the surface. So they can obviously smell that water is nearby, and you have the elephants which open up those holes, and then a lot of animals benefit from that, from springbok to oryx, ostriches, and all sorts of baboons even, where baboons, would never really go far from water. They do establish themselves in these sort of ephemeral rivers because there are places where it looks like there's a spring because there's water on the surface. Water itself, you can see that it's out at a certain point and then it flows downstream and then goes down again. And that's just where the underlying or bedrock is very close to the surface. But when the water levels do drop, you very often find that the animals that live in the areas around those so-called springs would get into trouble, and they'd have to move off and go and maybe move to the next ephemeral river, which could be 30 to 50 kilometers away, either to the north or to the south. Or they rely on animals such as the elephants to open up those holes where then a lot of animals will start to drink again. And so you often find these big holes dug by elephants, and the animals then sort of trample it and keep it open as they do a little bit of digging to keep that water in a particular area. So then they do extend the life sort of span of staying in that particular spot, and maybe that holds them through to the next time that it rains. So elephants play a very big part in the desert sort of ecosystem, opening up those water availability spots for a lot of the animals. You see a lovely group of blue wildebeest now that have come down to drink. But as I say, still hoping for some giraffe. They come and they'll have to zigzag and take their time. But it is a bit of a process. They don't come down to the water so quickly like these wildebeest have. They really make sure, and this is one of those places that it's imperative that they make sure, because there's a pride of lions, 20 plus strong, called the Umbika Pride. And last I knew there was 2 males in coalition that were within this area. So it's been a while since I've seen them, and I'm hoping that as we head in further into the drier months, that we'll see them coming down to drink as well. And who knows, we may even be lucky, where I have seen quite a few of both oryx and springbok, as well as impala, by this particular Umbika Pride of lions. They called the Umbika Pride because that's the waterhole that is just near to the entrance gate for Okukuyu. But Okukuyu is about 18 kilometers from the gate, there's the first water hole is a natural spring, but it does sort of drop in the amount of water that it has in the drier months. And the lions, they frequent that part and around that waterhole, but they do move up here towards Okukuyu as it dries up and heads into the drier months, as we're starting to go into now. So we're just coming off the end of the rainy season, and you can see how quickly it does dry up. It was only a couple of weeks ago, it was all green around this waterhole. Now it's turned back to this sort of orangey brown. It's crazy the colors in Namibia. You know, if you're here in the Eastern Cape, where Andrew is on Amakhala, everything is green. And you have a lot of that color. When you go to Namibia, you have a lot more of the reds, browns, and blacks. And greenery sort of intersperses with those colors, but I just find that the real color contrasts of the Namib cannot be beaten, because you have this uniformity of greenery in KwaZulu-Natal and down into the Eastern Cape, where here the colors are just so different, from white, orange, brown, black, and then the green and the blue sky with the white clouds and the red of the sun. It just makes for incredible contrast. Now, just as I'm looking off in the distance there, it does actually look like there might be some rainfall. So it does, however, seem like the wind is coming in from the east, heading towards the west. So I don't know if that rain will be heading this way, but who knows? We may see it coming from behind a little bit later. May we witness a thunderstorm in Etosha? That would be awesome. Some more springbok coming down to drink.
Wild Earth's mission is an expensive one, but we know that our live experience is important to so many people that cannot afford to pay for it. We have added a donate button to our website. By donating, you are directly helping us share our free nature experiences with the world. We want Wild Earth to reach children, budding conservationists, and the less fortunate. A little money goes a long way. You can make a difference to someone today.
The scenes are still unfolding here. We've had multiple herds of elephants come down, and now we've got wildebeest in the background. Everyone just gravitates towards the water. It has that gravitational pull that even humans can feel. We feel it probably for a different reason, but it really is just the focal point of so much happening, and that's why it really is worth staying at Clos Dam, because you just know within 20 minutes it's going to be like this. And you know, because of the high numbers of elephants at Madikwe, you often hear, oh, elephants have done so much damage. Oh, the reserve would look different. Oh, there are too many elephants. Possibly. But I think it's also important to remember that when it comes to landscape, choice of what the landscape should look like from a human perspective is often very strongly related to historical perspectives and what humans perceive to be aesthetic. Humans as a whole love aesthetically beautiful things, some more so than others, but we really are quite visual and we like visually beautiful things. We're attracted to them. And we might think that a garden that's perfectly manicured and every little bush is trimmed and there are no weeds and the grass is short, we might think that's beautiful. I personally don't, but generally maybe people do. And that doesn't mean that that is what that landscape should look like. That doesn't mean that that is beautiful in terms of nature. So we may view an area as really heavily impacted by elephants, but it will still remain a fully functioning ecosystem that's actually thriving. They're creators, not destroyers. So maybe the elephant's place in this ecosystem, by pushing over trees and knocking over trees and having that effect on the vegetation, actually helps the ecosystem thrive even more. Maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does. It really is. I always say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's true when it comes to this, because we talk about carrying capacity, the number of organisms that an ecosystem can hold. But then there's the aesthetic carrying capacity, where a lot of reserves will say, okay, this is enough elephants. If we have any more, they're going to do damage and the reserve's not going to look too good. That's not the real carrying capacity. That's the aesthetic carrying capacity. We just want a small herd of elephants, but we don't want any more because the reserve will look terrible. So the aesthetic carrying capacity is obviously far lower than the actual carrying capacity, and it involves fewer elephants. So you get the ecological carrying capacity than the aesthetic one. But it really is in the eye of the beholder. A lot of people think this is what the land should look like. But is it? You're talking from your perspective, what you think the land should look like. Maybe the land looks like exactly what it should look like. Maybe the elephants are supposed to do this. It's still a fully functioning, thriving ecosystem. We don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. I'm just throwing that out there, that maybe we should be careful with our terms. The elephants have destroyed so much, have they? Maybe they have, but also maybe they haven't. Maybe that's exactly what they're supposed to do. Maybe that's exactly why the elephants are here. Look at that little one. You can't just sit on your friends. These two youngsters are about the same age. The one on the left is just a little bit older. Oh, there's another youngster. That poor individual is trying to lie down and take a nap. It's not getting to nap. Aaron, I don't think they discipline their calves. I know they discipline the calves. It's very visual. It's very obvious to humans when they do so. The mothers are never not watching their little ones. The little ones are a handful, and the mothers have always got their eyes or their ears or their trunk on them. They guide them, they teach them, they lactate for up to 4 years for them, and they absolutely do discipline. Sometimes it's vocal, so we can hear it. Sometimes it's more sort of body language, it's more physical, but they absolutely discipline the calves. Calves can be very naughty, especially out here in the wilds where if a calf starts running away from the herd, it's immediately putting itself in a lot of danger. So yes, absolutely they do. I still don't feel that we fully understand the dynamics of a herd. We know what we know, if that makes sense, but I still think there is a lot that we've still to learn. I think there is a lot more intricacies and deeper connections going on with elephants that we have yet to understand. Maybe we never will. Hopefully we will. It'd be lovely to fully understand another organism, but it's a tough one. Catherine, that might be a little bit too anthropomorphic for me, but I see where you're going with that. You think the little ones act like human kids. I see where you're going. They're naughty, so we liken that to human kids. I wouldn't say they do act like human kids, but you can see that they just want to play. They just want to explore. They just want to annoy and touch every single member of the herd. They want to get their feet in every puddle, their trunk in everything that they can. They like to be vocal and loud, and I can absolutely see how you liken that to human kids. They need a lot of observation. You'll notice this mama here, Rian. She's not stopped watching the little ones. She's resting. But she has not stopped. One of them is her little one, I think, and she's not stopped watching them. Making sure they behave, they don't fall in the water, protecting them. And that's why they have the social structure they do. So the responsibility doesn't just fall to one mother on her own. That would be a lot of work. Just like human mamas, Catherine. But the herd life all support these efforts. Even those elephants like that one on the very left that's slightly older now, they will all look after the calves. A really high level of investment. I think this is the third or fourth day here. And it's just always active. Such a productive area. Just always worth coming to. There's lots of lovely ambience here right now. So I'm just gonna sit for a moment and let you guys enjoy it. It looks like they're starting to slowly move away now. It's some of the herd moving away now. But you'll always get the stragglers that stay behind, that's for sure. There are a lot of elephants in the park, as you know, and I think that as the seasons change, their movements change. You will find them all over, but coming to this dam especially, you can almost guarantee, you should never guarantee anything in the wild, but almost guarantee a sighting of elephants. And Rihanna and I have noticed that the past few days they've came at the same time every single day. Like clockwork. That will change naturally as you go through the seasons and it gets more and more into winter. But it's just beautiful that we can come here and almost guarantee sighting of elephants. You know, we spoke the other day a lot about animal intelligence, and one of the things that came up for animal intelligence was future planning. And I, on a personal level, I'm not obviously an animal psychologist or even close to it, but I really believe that on some level every animal plans, even if it's maybe not as consciously as humans do. Humans love to have a plan. But elephants are not, they're wanderers, yes, in that they're not territorial, but they're not aimless wanderers, if that makes sense. I mean, elephants are said to have exceptional mental mapping skills. But it's not visual. It's all chemical, but it's exceptional. And it's the older ones, of course, whose skills are relied on, because they are the ones who can really recall location, areas of food and water, even after many, many years later. Maybe the oldest female will say, it's drought again. Okay, this is not good. We can't find water anywhere. But I know where to go when it's drought, because a few years ago we experienced a drought and I know where to find water. So even though it looks like elephants are just aimlessly wandering, I really don't believe they are. They have a goal. They have an end point. Yes, they're not territorial, but they're wandering with purpose. Territorial organisms, I think, definitely future plan on some level in order to defend their territory. But even those that don't, I don't think they're not planning, if that makes sense, just because they've not got their diary out and they're writing things down. I still think they have a goal, they have a plan. I use that word loosely. I think some people think of elephants just wandering, eating, drinking, but no, the matriarch, the leader, and those who lead will absolutely have a plan for the day and where they're going. They're not just going anywhere. I don't know if you can hear that, but the impala are causing so much trouble behind us. We can't show you them, but rutting season it's happening. There's also a kudu that you can't see, just looking rather perplexed. Why are the impala behaving like this? Crazy. I think that's the elephant's gone now, apart from one. If you think about elephants in areas like Namibia, I know that Ralph has a lot of experience in Namibia. He's a Namibia man. But if you think about the Namib Desert and the elephants that they have there, the desert elephants, they have adapted to survive such harsh conditions, but they are not just wandering. No way. They travel several kilometers to reach water. And they know how to find water in the desert. They know how to find water depending on what season it is. They're very consciously aware of the seasons. And they can follow routes that haven't been followed for decades. And that's the power of the mental maps. And that's why I just feel personally that saying, oh, future planning is a marker of intelligence. I think all organisms in some way plan for the future. I just think humans do it in a more conscious way. Oh, I've got that dinner tonight. Oh my goodness. And then the day after we're going out, we're going to the movies. And then on Saturday, we're going dancing. And on Sunday, that's very conscious. It's a very human way to be. No, I don't think animals are like that. But I do think they absolutely plan for the future. Drongo, I personally wouldn't say their senses are heightened during must. I'm also not sure about that term, senses are heightened. I wonder if it's just a... Our senses are always working. At least in humans, we tune into them differently. Your sense of smell is always smelling. It never stops or dulls or lowers. It's just that sometimes because we so focus on our vision and we put, oh, there's Floppy, yeah. And it's definitely her because Mama's got a collar. Oh. Hello again. Oh, it's gone in the water. I'm not sure Mama wants it to go in. But yes, does that make sense? You're always smelling. Sometimes you're just not aware that you're smelling because we live in such a world full of distractions. Our brains are going rapidly thinking of all these different things, sometimes completely irrelevant things, and you're always looking. But that doesn't mean your other senses are not working. And this career, being out here in the bush, has actually taught me that. You just need to tune into that sense. I've particularly tuned into my sense of smell. I've always had a good sense of smell. But out here, I make sure that I consciously tune into that. So the word heightened, I've always struggled with a little bit. But in answer to your question, Drongo, I don't believe the senses become heightened. I think the females are always aware of a must bull, and therefore they will become very aware and protective. But I don't necessarily think these senses become heightened, if that makes sense. They will immediately know when a bull is in must. They'll immediately be able to smell. Maybe they have other ways of detecting that, but they will immediately... Be careful, little floppy, yeah? They will immediately know. If they can feel this bull's behaving badly or very aggressive, then they will obviously protect the calves and walk the other way. But if the bull's calm, gentlemen, maybe just very relaxed, they might change their behavior. So they'll change their behavior according to the behavior of the male. It's very situational dependent, I think. But I don't believe that their senses all of a sudden heighten because there is a bull around. I think they'll become very cautious and aware, all in all. Hope that answered your question, Drongo. I guess heightened means increased sensitivity, but is it becoming more sensitive, or are you just using more brain power to tune into that? I don't know. What do you guys think? Smooth landing by the shell ducks. I wondered where they were going to land. They were very noisy. Male and female. Female in front. I love the color palette of the male. I love that grey head and sort of rusty colored body. I think it's really complementary. And the female too, actually. She just follows her everywhere. She definitely wears the pants. Oh, Rian, sorry, I have just noticed. I think our little lanner falcon is back. Been waiting to put him on camera. You see him up the top of the leadwood. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him. Always sits in this tree. Gorgeous bird. And it's a little bit tricky to see from far away, but they have got really distinctive markings, these birds. Almost looks like they've got very dramatic face paint on. They've got sort of a real thick black line that goes right down the eye and a sort of rufous color crown. Ah, lovely birds. Been waiting to put that one on. Normally it's the Egyptian goose, but this time it's the shelducks. Lily Ann, you are saying this place is incredible, one of your favorites. And yes, I assume you're talking about Cleo Dam. Have you been? Or do you just watch it through Wild Earth? Either way, you're right. Oh, little floppy ears coming out the water, Rian. Sorry, I'm in love with this elephant. I just want to see how easy it gets out the water. We watched a youngster struggle earlier. Sometimes it's a bit too steep of a step for the very small ones. And normally Mama comes in to help. Oh, no. Floppy ears just gone back to mud bathing. But yes, Lillian, it's one of my favorites too. Honestly, it can be quiet. Of course it can be quiet. But we've seen 4 of the big 5 here, not leopard. But every other of the big 5 we've had here, the sort of bird life is incredible. The antelope life is incredible. It's really wonderful. I'm just going to have to drink some water, everyone. Sorry. Talking a while. Looks like a little meeting down there. And probably is a meeting. Tracy, no, not when there's lots of water. It becomes dangerous when there is no water and it's just sort of mud, especially clay soil mud, if that makes sense. Especially the sodic sites, that can be really dangerous. That's when they can get really stuck and then the mums go to help them and they get stuck. That can sort of happen in really drought conditions. But here the water is plentiful. So it's not so dangerous for the youngsters. They can struggle to get out. It's quite a big step to get out from the site that they always choose to get out from. And sometimes the mom has to come and help them and give them a little nudge. But I mean, when your mom is that size, you're never going to be in too much trouble. But when the water levels go down and it becomes really sticky mud, it can be a bit tricky. You do see, especially in East Africa, I've seen a lot of elephants getting stuck in the real mud where they've gone to try and wallow or cool down or get that mud on their skin, and unfortunately they just get stuck. Oh, floppy ear is out. There you are, little one. No mountain too high for you. Okay, we're going to sit here and enjoy every moment, but we're going to send you guys over to my dear friend Ralph.
So, lots of activity here at Okukuyu. Lots of springbok. There's zebra, there's oryx, or gemsbok, or the gamsebok, as they call them. And, well, most of these animals, or all of the animals that are here currently, would be grazers. And the biggest amount of grass that they will feed on here in the Etosha National Park, mainly the Stipagrostis species, or what we commonly call Bushman grass. It's one of those really nutritive grasses, very similar to the Tomida triandra that we get here in South Africa, or the red grass. And also very similar to what you get in the Masai Mara with the red oat grass, as they call it there. So it seems like all the different areas have got the really sort of nutritious grass species. And the one here in Namibia in particular is that Bushman grass. And it really explodes into life after it's rained. It's got a very corkscrew-like seed on it. And it seems like what happens is with the little seed, it's actually got a spike on the end. So when the grass plant actually fulfills its life cycle, the seeds, it leaves this beautiful gray color on the grass itself. And you will have seen that if you've been watching Escape to Nature with the dam cams here next to this particular waterhole. Immediately after the rains, obviously you have this bloom of growth of the grasses itself, so it's a very deep green color. And then as the seeds then come through, you get this very silver color to the top of the grasses itself. And then as they yellow, as they brown, the grass itself, then you start to have the dispersal of these grass seeds. And they've got a little spike on the end, and then a corkscrew-like physiology, so that when they get spiked into the ground and the wind blows on them, they literally drill themselves into the ground. And those grass seeds can actually stay dormant for up to 10 years. And well, they say more than that, but they've observed it going for up to 10 years. And then as soon as you get the rains, which looks like we may even be in for some here at Okukuyu, then those dormant grass species then actually germinate. And then you have this very quick life cycle once again. But those are the grass species that most of these animals will be feeding on. Even when they are dry, they still hold a very high protein value for them. So they'll be feeding on that. But a lot of the other animals, the impala, the kudu, the browsers, they'll obviously have to be going more so into where the trees are there in the background. That's mainly Mopani woodland, but it is interspersed by the very nutritious acacia or Vachellia, as they call it now. But even with the Mopani, it's not very palatable, but it's got a very high protein content within the leaves. So they may not like eating it, but when there's nothing else to eat, the Mopani leaves, even when dry, can sustain animals quite well. But most of the time, you will find animals feeding more on plants that have got thorns. And we'll get a little bit further into that after the break.
Thanks to our wonderful Wild Earth explorers, Wild Earth Kids is back. Your monthly subscriptions have allowed us to relaunch Wild Earth Schools on a weekly basis, every Wednesday for the first hour of the Sunset Safari.
You guys bring a smile to my face every single day.
Sign your class up for a special virtual field trip to Africa, because touching the lives of the future protectors of our Earth truly matters.
So one of the phenomenons that we do know about is the more arid areas have got more spinescent or thorny plants. And it obviously sort of goes along the lines where it's more moist, where it's wetter, you don't have as many thorny plants. And it seems reasonable to expect that all herbivores, to avoid plants which bristle with formidable thorns and spines. But in fact, this isn't the case. Some do, but in general, herbivores are determined creatures. If they want to eat a particular plant, they'll do so irrespective of how thorny it may be. In most desert plants, thorny designs have evolved, which instead of providing 100% protection, are intended instead to make the herbivore's task difficult and unpleasant. Thorns on branches force herbivores to take small bites, which often comprise no more than a single leaf or leaf cluster. Moreover, the herbivores cannot compensate for this by increasing the number of bites per unit of time. This is because it takes a browser a certain amount of time to cautiously maneuver its lips and tongue between the thorns for the next bite. In fact, plants with hooked thorns are even better off, like the buffalo thorn, because the herbivores have to waste even more valuable foraging time unhooking their tongues and lips from the thorns. And anybody who's had the ill fortune to brush up against the blackthorn, which is the Acacia orchilia mellifera, will know that it takes a few minutes to disentangle yourself from its hooked, razor-sharp thorns. Many plants add to the woes of desert herbivores, such as gemsbok and eland, in that their leaves are not only well protected by the thorns, but they're also tiny or very small. This makes it even less economical for browsers to battle the thorns. However, the largest of the desert herbivores, the elephant and the black rhino, display scant respect for thorns. Long or short, fat or thin, hooked or straight, all thorns are munched along with the leaves, causing these determined creatures not the slightest adversity. And those are all animals that we do get here in Etosha National Park. Lawrence, it's normally when there is any planting of grass species or plants, it's generally when there's been an overutilized area. So it might have been overgrazed, it might have been trampled. You might have a water source such as here at Okokuyu, where you can see in the immediate environment or surroundings, it's very sparsely populated by plants. And that's as a result of the elephants pushing the trees down. As you can see here, as we head a little bit to the left, originally there would have been a lot more trees here, but with this permanent waterhole now, you'll have the elephants pushing over the trees and the animals really decimating anything that grows here. And they not only overfeed it, they also trample the soil. And it then really does solidify the soil, making it a lot more difficult for the plants to recover. So in this artificial kind of water placement, now this originally was a water hole, but they're keeping it permanent because they've put a fence up around the reserve, and also they've put a camp up here. So they'd like to attract the animals to this specific spot. It's great for tourism. But if they had to leave this waterhole then to go back to its natural condition, and then it would be more of a seasonal type waterhole, they could then start to reseed this area, most likely with Stipagrostis, and maybe also replant some of the Acacia karoo or the camel thorn to get it back to its original or more natural state. So there are national parks, there are nature reserves where they do this, but it's all part of the management plan, where maybe they're wanting to recover a certain area like this, where it's been overgrazed, where it's been trampled and overutilized, and try to recover it. So yes, there are occasions when they do it, but it's mostly if the resources have sort of diminished or they have changes in the management plan, that they'd like to recover certain areas, or it all depends on what the real modus operandi is of the national park, or if they've had any issues in recent years, if they've had droughts, or if they've had massive expansion of certain species populations. It's quite a movable subject, that. But yes, they can reseed. I've been involved in conservation projects where we have reseeded areas, and then moving of the water placement so that the animals don't go and overutilize that area immediately after. So if we had to reseed and replant the trees and the grasses here in this particular area, it would not really make much of a difference, because immediately after there would be germination or growth of the trees, the elephants would be pushing down the trees, and the animals would be grazing the grass back to its original state. So you'd have to move the water or stop the water in this particular area so that they move to another area to go and drink, and as a result feed in that particular zone. So it would require quite a substantial change in the immediate environment for the effort put in to replant and reseed to actually make any difference. So it would really need to be thought through properly, and the provision for water and food needs to be thought of in the alternative space that you're hoping the animals will move to. So it's quite a movable science that you are playing with, but there's enough experience around with the rangers and the personnel that have worked in these particular areas to be able to, from that experience, then say this is what they propose. Now, when I first started in wildlife management or nature conservation that we studied, you needed to be a minimum of 10 years working as a ranger within a particular park before you could become a sort of management role or head ranger, that type of thing. And that was always because you needed to go through that apprenticeship period of a minimum of 10 years to be able to see the different ebbs and flows of the particular reserve that you're working on. So from the different seasons and then across the years. And they always said that a minimum of 10 years would be required for anybody to have any real experience or sufficient experience to be able to actually manage the wildlife and the area, under their control. So I think it's very important for experienced personnel to be present on these different properties and in these different national parks, etc., to make the correct decisions: when to burn, where to burn, when to do animal management. There's predator management, there's problem animal control, anti-poaching, the specific boundaries, the water placement, and exactly what we've just been speaking of, where you do your felt management surveys and then looking after that. So there's a lot to take on, and I think anybody that's worked for less than 10 years on a particular reserve doesn't have that required experience to be able to make the very important decisions that need to be made. And then mistakes will be made, and sometimes it's very easy to degrade an area over a very short space of time, but it can take sometimes 50, 100 years to return it to a favorable area for wildlife. So those small mistakes can have a very big or negative outcome. So Grace, yes, it's extremely important where water is placed, especially if you're putting up an artificial water point or maintaining a permanent water point where it might have just been seasonal, because the animals would move from season to season between different water holes, and then they wouldn't have the massive impact that they would have if it's turned into a permanent water hole, because they may just come through there when the resources are favorable and then move off, allowing the area to recover. And when you've got a spot like this that is now permanent, you need to think of the adverse effects that you're going to have to the immediate surroundings. And you can see here, it is pretty much a desert. I'll move out a little bit. Yes, obviously there is still plant life, But now that it's maintained as a permanent waterhole, there's very little that has survived. And there's no new small plants that you can see that survive sort of this immediate area because of the amount of animals that come in here. Obviously have a massive impact. So sometimes you can sacrifice one area for another and then return it, but it's all within the bigger, greater management plan. And it's always important to remember that your different specific plants will have different reactions to utilization. Some plants actually need to be utilized a lot, and they don't easily overgraze. They're actually more easily undergrazed. So if they're not fed on regularly, their numbers can actually dwindle. Whereas you get other species, such as the more climax species that are more favorable to the area and to the animals that feed on them, they're very easily overgrazed. So, it all depends where your water placement is. You generally want to put your water where you have underutilized areas and plant species, so that you actually drive the animals into those areas. They feed on the, less palatable plants and plants that are not so susceptible to overgrazing. And they actually then assist with the succession of the area, turning it further into a climax zone. So you can actually manipulate the animals into assisting you in your veld management if used correctly. However, you can very easily destroy an area if your veld management is not taken into consideration and you just put the water wherever it's easiest or wherever it was just found and you now make a permanent spot. So lots of thought and science can go into that, and it's not simply let's make a water hole and all the animals will come here. You need to think of what's going to happen to the immediate surroundings. That's of most importance. Without veld management surveys, you won't know exactly what grasses you have and how they'll react to the presence of animals, feeding on them and trampling, etc. So the first thing that needs to be done in any area that is under your management needs to be surveyed so that you know what you have and so that you know what you can do with it. Just a lovely grouping of animals now. Lots and lots of zebra. That is really awesome. See, it's getting a lot grayer now with these clouds having pulled in. It looks like we may get some rain. It doesn't look like it's the big thunderstorms that you do expect a little bit earlier in the year. We say that in Namibia, the real heavy rainy season is from January to March, where the small rainy season is generally from about the end of October till the middle of December. That's when you have the sort of first little startings of rain, but you generally don't have those big cloud bursts that you'll get between January and March. So between January and March, pretty much the not the closed season, but the very quiet season in Namibia, because as soon as it rains, you generally have the dispersal of the animals because they don't need to all center around places such as this at Okukuyu. So now that we're speaking about the importance of water and water placement and how it fits in with the greater ecosystem, especially here in desert environments, let's go and have a look at a little video which explains just that.
No life on our planet exists without the simple combination of hydrogen and oxygen, that is, water. every cell that makes up the wonders of our natural history needs this life-sustaining molecule. Sometimes in tiny amounts, sometimes in torrents. Our blue planet, flush with biological wonders, would be a desolate, lifeless place without miraculous H2O.
I love that. Our world, so full of incredible wonders, so rich in biodiversity, would become a desolate, empty place without that miraculous H2O, which is, of course, the molecular formula for water. It's simple, hydrogen and oxygen. And yet, there is no organism to date that has been found that can survive without it. Cells need it to function. Animals need it to cool down. Our oceans, our rivers. The vegetation needs rain. But it can also be our enemy sometimes when the oceans get so rough. Have you seen those videos of people on the rigs and the waves? Oh, I feel sick actually thinking about it. The waves are going over the rigs, and when rivers get too full, flooding, areas flood, drought, it can be our enemy. But at the end of the day, we cannot survive without it. And of course, even for humans, we can last a lot longer without food than we can without water. Millie, absolutely, absolutely. Far too scary to think about a world without water. And of course, some of the world is without water, and that's what's incredibly sad. 1 in 3 people lack access to clean, safe drinking water. And if you think about it, the answer is within nature itself. Nature has its own solutions. I gave the example the other day of the freshwater pearl mussel that's not called the freshwater pearl mussel anymore, but it cleans the water for us. We don't have to do anything. All we have to do is stop fishing them out the water. There are animals, organisms that do it all for us. Clean the water. And I'm sure you've all heard of arsenic. That's actually been, well, the poisoner's favorite weapon throughout human history, I guess. And a less well-known fact is arsenic can actually be found in drinking water in very sort of minimal quantities. But there's a special moss, and all it takes is a really tiny tuft of that moss to be placed in the water, and it can completely cleanse and clean the harmful drinking water, making it pure enough to drink. Wait, are you ready? In just 1 hour. So an hour ago it had arsenic in it, which can be fatal. You can't drink that. But just put a little bit of this moss in it and boom, an hour later, you've got cleansed and extremely clean drinking water. And Southeast Asia have a terrible problem with arsenic in the drinking water. I mean, it's odorless, tasteless, colorless, boom. You don't see it, you don't smell it, you don't taste it, and it can be in your drinking water. Millions of people in Southeast Asia got arsenic poisoning. But the answer is there. Nature has its own solution. I think that was a tantrum. Elephants, I'm trying to tell people about water. I think it's a type of hook moss. I've got it written on my phone. If you give me 2 minutes, I'll be able to pull it up. And it's this hook moss. It really doesn't look much. And it's been described scientifically as a total badass at sucking up arsenic. And it is Warnstophilia flutans. There we go. Probably pronounced that horribly, but it is in my phone. Warnstophia flutans. Hook moss. Yeah, I was right. And it's a total badass at sucking up arsenic. Written in scientific paper. There are all sorts of organisms that clean up our water. And they're actually thinking of setting up wetlands in specific countries in Southeast Asia with this type of hook moss and trying to clean and purify the waters, but it doesn't really thrive in the climate of Asia, I'm afraid. It sort of thrives more in climates of Sweden. So we haven't found a solution yet, but it's there. It's called phytoremediation, when you use plants to purify polluted water, polluted soil, or air. That's what it's called, phytoremediation. There's actually a wonderful book called The Tapestries of Life. And it goes deep into the importance of drinking water and groundwater, and I'm trying to think what else it details, but the things that are holding the environment together that maybe you don't think about too often. It's a very beautiful book. Oh, Frankie, I think we have adapted to deal with pollution, in a sense. I think sometimes our environment is killing us. I mean, if you think of cancer, we've probably all lost someone to cancer. It's awful. And the rates are on the increase. We're living in a very different world. There are pollutants coming at us from the air, from the soil, from the water, from chemicals that we're bringing into our home without even realizing it. Lots of things that are toxic around us that are bringing on these diseases that we don't even realize. We live in quite a toxic world, literally and metaphorically, I guess. And I think we have adapted, but I don't think we can adapt fully quick enough, if that makes sense. We do get sick. And a lot of this is from the lifestyle that we lead. And I think that if we continue to treat our planet the way we're treating it, then I don't think we can adapt fast enough, no. The climate and our planet is changing at such a rapid rate from anthropogenic effects that I don't think that we as human race will be able to constantly keep up with all of these changes in our natural world. Our planet needs a lot of love, attention, and care. And of course, many of us are. Many of us are doing whatever we can to make a difference. I know that. But of course, there's big corporations and big governments, I guess, that are maybe not doing all that they could and should.
Here on Wild Earth, we're on 25 different platforms globally, and we're looking at each of them to see what is the best mix for the future. Please take 30 seconds of your time to fill in this survey. It will be super helpful for us. The last thing we want is for your viewing habits to be affected. Thanks.
Sit and watch these Ellies all day, and guess that's what I have been doing. Every day we've been coming here, and well, it's never failed to deliver. Russell, yes, they do. The adults, not so much. I mean, I think the adults can cool themselves down. I don't really think they need to depend on another adult to cool them down. And the calves, however, yes, you will often see mostly the mums, but it can be any of the adults helping cool the calves down. Especially if the mum feels like it's far too hot, it's a hot summer's day, and this calf is just not drinking enough. And what she'll do is she will either push the calf to the water, physically push it. She'll make sure that it's cooled down by actually spraying water with her trunk onto the calf's skin, because the skin is very well adapted to holding onto water and mud. They're not really wrinkles on the skin. Yes, technically are wrinkles, but they're highly keratinized, specialized cracks. It's a network of cracks that actually allow for the elephant to cool down. The water gets stuck in there and it assists in cooling the elephant down and keeping it cool for longer. So the mum will spray the calf with water from her trunk, and mothers have also been known to actually force their trunk into the calf's mouth and put water in there if they obviously feel the calf is not drinking enough. So yes, they do help the little ones cool down, but I really don't think it's terribly necessary for the adults to help one another. And you know, the book I was referring to, The Tapestries of Life, it goes into great detail about when you look at the natural world, we see what we see, but there's a lot we don't see. And at the very heart of the natural world, remember, the heart is the organ that pumps. The heart is an organ of many things in our body, but it keeps us alive. And the heart of the natural world, keeping the natural world alive, is a life support system really like no other. There's a network there in any natural ecosystem that provides, I guess, some of the most vital goods and services that we have for us. And we still don't look after our planet. Food, water, obviously, medicine. So many of our medicines that we use come from the natural world. Pollination. Pollution control, I just mentioned that. The mussels, the moss, they're controlling the pollution. They are remedying it, I guess. Recreation, a lot of the things that humans do for recreation involves the natural world. Even spiritual health. If you're a spiritual person, a lot of that is very tightly linked to the natural world. And that's just the benefits for humans. I don't tend to often think of these things. Oh, this has just been such a perfect morning. But I think from the northwest of South Africa, we're going to send you over to Djuma Private Game Reserve.
Ah, yes, over here at the Djuma Dam Cam. Well, just the perfect timing because our nesting parrots, brown-headed parrots, oh, and there he goes. One of them just exited the nest, which you can see just underneath that little branch flew off from, and that's the typical spot that you often see them. So that was nice to see him before he flew off. But it does seem like there's quite a bit of wind in Djuma. So if you notice a little bit of rocking of the camera, it is down to that, because it's really coming through. And well, for me, when we look at the waterhole itself, this is incredible, because when I was there in 2018, 2019, there was very, very little water, almost none at all. I remember we were doing dances in the little river bed there. There was only a small little pad, and now it's really filled up. So lots and lots of rain has been had. And we, as always, just sort of scan along the banks of the waterhole itself, because we can very often get lucky in that we see some predators, maybe even a leopard, one of the characters that we know, and sometimes they are just hidden. We need to look pretty closely to be able to spot them. In the last few days, I know there has Murray Bay. He's also been spotted here, but in amongst the long grass. And we always need to just check. And when we're looking for one animal in particular, you very often see another. It was like obviously moving around here on the dam cams at Djuma, a honey badger digging up sand frogs in the surrounding area next to the waterhole. So always constantly just looking to see if there's not anything hiding in the fringes, in the vegetation, because they're so well camouflaged, you'd miss them very easily if you just go past. What have we got? There are often terrapins also out sunning themselves, sometimes the water monitor lizards too. Sometimes animals just hiding up in the shade. So always worth a look. As you can see now, the wind coming through. Yuri. I haven't seen any crocodiles here, as I say. So no, I haven't seen any crocodile attacks. I know now with there being more water, there's potential for them being, but no, we do have the hippos, but they don't generally attack anything, except for Dewey. He likes to attack sticks and logs. But that's about it. I haven't seen any animals getting eaten or preyed upon here at the Djuma Dam. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. That's why we always just keep looking. You never know. That's the beauty of it. Shame for the animals that do need to take their lives in their own hands when they come next to the water here. It's not quite as relaxed as they might be at Okukuyu, where there's definitely no crocodiles. Here, it's sporadic. There can be sometimes and sometimes not, but I'd never trust it. I wouldn't go swimming in this waterhole even if you paid me. It's not a good idea. So yeah, always just moving around looking. Always just panning and scanning, see what we can find. You often have a lot of different animals coming down to drink here. But with this waterhole also being so full, you can expect there to be a lot of other waterholes that are also full. So it does spread the animals around a little bit, and not always necessary for them to come to this particular spot. But we still have quite a lot of animals moving through. There's always the Nyala, the Impala. We often have elephants coming down to drink. So yeah, it's always just the luck of the draw, really. So we just keep moving around. But I mean, obviously here in the Sabi Sands, the animal that or animals or predators that are the most frequent would be leopards, lions, spotted hyena. So that generally I say not always as active during the day, but still worth a look, because you can often as I say, especially leopards. They could be moving around during the day. Not so much the hyenas and the lions. I would say, between them, leopards probably most active out of the three during the day, then spotted hyenas, then lions. So, yeah. Always just the luck of the draw. But yeah, other than the hippos that are in the water, but mainly staying underwater, it's pretty quiet at the Djuma waterhole. So lots of wind. You can imagine on a day like that, it's probably quite hot, but windy as well. You generally have that it's a hot wind too. Alrighty, so it's a little bit quiet at Djuma, but we'll keep our eye on it. But I think for the time being, let's go to Etosha, where it's a little bit more busy. And so, as I was saying, a little bit more busy here. Lots more animals. And also exhibiting what I said, where they're not scared of the water in these parts. It's that hasn't had crocodiles, I would say, for centuries. Probably since the time that the Kunene River moved straight towards the ocean. And for a period after that, there probably were crocodiles here because the Kunene River is full of them. But I think as it dried up, they probably would have followed the water back towards where the channel is now, and the ones that remained here probably perished. And they could have remained for quite some time, but eventually, as it dried up, then they would have had to head towards where the river is now, heading straight towards the ocean, right up on the northern part of Namibia, the boundary between Namibia and Angola. And leaving these parts without crocodiles. So it would have also taken a period of time for the animals to start relaxing around water and knowing that they don't have that real death option or problem, if you want to say that, of the crocodiles in the water. And that's why they don't really have a problem in walking right inside. Orleen, Thandi and her calf still have not shown themselves. So as soon as they do, I'm going to post it online, and I will hashtag Wild Earth. So keep an eye out, because as soon as we have some movement there, I'll let everybody know. I'm very close with the rangers there on Kariega, so they'll let me know as soon as she does bring the new little one out in the open. I think it could still be a week or so to go. But yeah, she may even stay longer. Who knows? But it's going to be wonderful to see the new little one bounding about like they do. And they're very young little rhinos. They seem like they really have a good time running around, following mom. There's a bundle of joy. So it's the time of the wildebeest now to come down for a drink. Quite a few zebra as well, but mostly these quite a big group of blue wildebeest, but they still like to band together, and you can see how the different species also stick together. But I think they do feel better with the greater numbers, regardless of species. As long as there's lots of springbok, zebra, and whatever else, it does lessen the odds of you getting eaten. Or make the odds a bit better, should I say. And it's a very proficient pride of lions that are here. I've watched them hunting many times, a couple of times actually using my vehicle as cover to hunt zebra on the main road from the southern entrance to Okukuyu, between Umbika waterhole and this waterhole. It's about an 18-kilometer stretch, and I've often had them in that sort of zone and then hunting both wildebeest and zebra. But the nicest one that I had was when they actually took down a zebra right next to the road and they used our vehicle as cover. So we weren't moving and they moved in behind us without the zebra's knowledge. And then as the zebra sort of walked towards the road, they jumped out and chased one down and took it and fed on it right there. And there were more than 20 lions. So that zebra didn't last very long, but it was a wonderful sighting for the guests. So the viewers may have gotten ahead of me. Maybe I haven't received the Bush Telegraph as I expected. So it seems like there might be a video online. I'm going to go and check it out just after this. And thanks for letting me know. I'm going to have a word with some of my friends on Kariega because they've released the news without telling me. But that's all right. As long as the news is out and Thandi is out with her new calf, well, I'd love to see it. I don't know if she's come down or gone down onto the Scotia clearings or whether they've gone to sort of the area that she was. So that'll be interesting to see. But regardless, that doesn't matter as long as she is in fact out and they have a view on the little calf. That's wonderful news to get today. I'm stoked. I'll have to go across and go and see her. Maybe my friends were just too hard at work. That's why they haven't told me. I'll have to have a word. Anyway, while you let me find out about Kariega and Thandi and a new calf and have a word with my friends, let's head you on over to Lauren.
Can work with this? Or do you want me to go back? Okay, sorry, Rianne and I are just repositioning. I don't appear to have any comms. Okay. Oh, there's the antenna. Do you want me to reposition, Rianne? 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 It's all good. Okay, we're all good here. We just have to make sure that we are in the shade. It's better now that we are. Look at that one just over to the right that's resting its trunk. That must be some sort of concrete wall. I'd love to have some sort of tool or piece of technology where you could actually count the number of elephants that come by here each day. I could only guess. Only here for a small part of today. I'd love to know. Each reserve offers something quite unique, but I must say that Madikwe's elephant sightings are next to none. Nothing compares in my experience. Even the Masai Mara, where you do get some big tuskers and you do get incredible herds, they still don't compare to the sightings you can have at Madikwe. If you really want to sort of spend time with elephants and have the most incredible sightings, I would honestly say Madikwe is a reserve for that. My comms are not working very well, but I think I'm being asked about brown hyenas. And yes, apparently it's sunset. This can be quite a good dam to find brown hyenas. I haven't personally seen one, but I believe Clo Dam is a really excellent dam for that, from what I've heard. And I think as you go more and more into winter, yes. Right now, really, water is still readily available everywhere. There's still puddles on the road. They are drying up remarkably fast, but there is still areas with water, so they don't necessarily need to come to the dam. But I think as we go into water, I think this will be a great one to come to at sunset. The brown hyena den is really not too far away from here. The one that we've been trying with no luck so far. The little one. Starbuck, yes. Elephant. Oh, Starbuck. I've just realized I always thought you were Starburst. Sorry. Just realized that now. You're not Starburst, you're Starbuck. Yes, Starbuck. They can breed all year round. They have such a long gestation period that the females will come into estrus throughout the year. They don't have a sort of particular season that they come into estrus. Oh, look at this. It's very sweet. Precious moments. Rachel, elephant babies are #1 for you. Leopard cubs close second. Ooh, I love that. You love elephant calves. It's so hard. It's so hard. I love baby everythings. Even baby spiders can be cute. Baby scorpions can be cute. Baby everything is just, I don't know, adorable, I guess. But you love baby elephants. Well, I think you've seen plenty today, Rachel, so I hope your heart is full. Leopard cubs, probably not going to be able to deliver that to you at Madikwe. I think Juma's more the place for that, but you never know.
It's that time again. Time to update you, our loyal and amazing Wild Earth family, on what is going on behind the scenes here at Wild Earth. Join Andre Crawford Brandt and Emily Wellington in the town hall on Sunday, 23rd April at 7 p.m. Central African Time. And this time, it is open to all our registered users. Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
It's all calmed down. They're not really utilizing the water. I think it's now just a bit of a relaxing rest stop now. Don't want to always be on the move, although the bulk of the day they are. They also need to rest. And it's a wonderful thing, elephants can rest standing up. Richard, I feel like you already know the answer to this question, but they all do. I wouldn't say scare. Elephants don't like any other organism, really. They only like their own. They especially don't like it when they sort of can, if it's the rumor with the elephants don't like mice. It's not that they don't specifically like mice, but mice are small, they scuttle, they run, they're fast, and elephants can't really see them. They can probably feel them and hear them, but it sort of takes the elephant a little bit by surprise, and they don't like it. I would not say that it's elephants don't like mice per se. They don't really like any other organism, to be honest. They'll chase away birds. We watched them chase away kudu earlier. They'll chase away everything. Won't let oxpeckers land on them. Won't tolerate small things scuttling around their feet. Don't like bees. They don't really like any other animal. They're very reactive, very emotional animals. Very protective of the young and of the herd. And they really don't like it when another organism arrives in their space, even though it's technically not their space. But what a wonderful, wonderful afternoon it has been. And for now, we're going to send you guys back over to Ralph.
Just been watching this small group of oryx have a drink, and obviously now they're leaving. But that's the problem. And you further away. Meantime, I did a bit of digging, and yes, the viewers that have Kariega are indeed correct. Things that happened yesterday. And the post from Kariega Game Reserve is as such. After staying hidden for almost 3 weeks, everyone's favorite rhino, Thandi, has started showing off her latest calf. The little calf is a male, and they have continued the legacy of naming her calves, giving this cute little fellow the name Zolani. And it's especially poignant as he is named after one of their guides that they lost in a tragic accident a little while back. Zolani has multiple meanings, but can be summarized as still, calm-loving, and free-spirited. But in other exciting news, they're also overjoyed to announce the birth of another rhino. This time, Tembi, who's Thandi's calf, gave birth to another little calf as well. They have given out a massive thank you to staff, friends, guests, and supporters that have walked with them through with this beautiful, wonderful rhino's amazing story. So if you'd like to know anything more about Thandi and her little baby calf, keep following Kariega Game Reserve on social media. I don't think that Tembi will be out anytime soon if it goes by the sort of same that she's done before, very similar to Thandi, staying between 2 and 3 weeks in seclusion without any mingling with any other rhinos or people. They'd like to stay isolated for especially that initial period, printing stage, and getting to know each other out into the open. It seems Thandi is already down onto the Scotia flats and clearings, so she's obviously quite happy that the little one, Zolani, is strong enough to join the family and be out in the open. So that's wonderful news, and it's wonderful, you know, especially with the conservation efforts that Kariega Game Reserve is putting into these rhino. There's another 2 that we can add to the national population and for the international population of white rhino. when we look at the likes of Amakhala really doing a lot, particularly around the conservation of cheetah. And we get to follow those three amigos in particular, as well as Pumulela and her two youngsters. So another wonderful location to follow in the conservation efforts, especially around these particular animals that they are conserving. Here in Etosha, I would have to say that it's probably around the black rhino, where they've had amazing results, and they've been exporting rhinos. Unfortunately, though, there has been a spike most recently in rhino poaching in southern Africa in general. It's spiked in the Eastern Cape, where there's been a number of different private reserves having rhino being poached. And in Namibia, there has also been a bit of a spike in the poaching there too. So we just hope that they can get it under control. It seems to go in these waves where the amount of poaching does increase, and then eventually they get a control on it, and then it drops again, but then it does come back after a period of time. So we just hope that we're not going to go through a big period of rhino poaching. But the authorities on the ground are forever, increasing their capabilities of catching the poachers before they even get to the rhinos, and also post poaching incidents, actually following up on these criminals and bringing them to justice. So we just hope that they can keep on going with the technology that has increased as well, and really make it a difficult project for these poachers. So let's just go in a little bit closer now on the next group of animals that have come in. And it seems to go like this throughout the day, with different species coming in to drink. And they all seem to have their allocated time slot. And now it's the time for zebras. But I always love to watch how they come in from one side and then move off onto the next side. And, we often sit, there's almost like a mini amphitheater. Oh, someone spooked them. On the right-hand side of your screen now, there's a lovely sort of amphitheater-styled seating arrangement with nice shade, because it can be extremely hot here next to the waterhole. So that's where I often sit. But when the elephants come around on this waterhole, they always come to the bottom left, where that one springbok is drinking now with his head sort of extended. That's where that fresh water comes out. So when the elephants come, I like to always sit here closest to the camera, because then you can get, you're only it's probably within 20 meters of the elephants themselves, but you're on a safe point. So it's the closest spot to be right in amongst, it feels like, the herds of elephants that do come through. And they'll start to come back in the days to come, and then we'll start having big herds of elephants in the Okukuyu area once more. Looks like the sky has cleared a little bit. I'm going to go in there just to get a bit of a closer view up on these zebra drinking. It's a shame there is a bit of wind, because you often have that mirror effect when the zebras do drink, and it just makes for beautiful photography. And a lot of people do go to Okukuyu for photography in general, and you often see it's like the paparazzi here next to this waterhole, especially now heading into high season. It looks like there's a couple of youngsters there as well that are learning from the adults that especially there's nothing to worry about this water, and you get a little bit further and get some nice fresh tasting drinking water as well. Nice to see the youngsters. And then they generally do leave off in a line, most likely headed off by the stallion. And this would most likely be a couple of different harems together. As we go back, and then we see some more springboks. So there is something in the way of feed around. They are grazing a bit on that Stipagrostis, or what's left of it. After have been through. So there's a little bit, but a very big impact, especially next to the water. Here, there won't be much left in the days to come. It's incredible how quickly that rain has dissipated or moved off. Because earlier it was looking like it might be quite a rainy day. Viv, you're most welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure. It's always a privilege to both be in amongst these wilderness areas and watching the animals that we do, but also having you, the viewers, on board with us and basically making it all possible for us to do, firstly, what we love, and to bring these awesome wilderness pictures to you, and having the privilege of being able to narrate on it as well. So, and for me, this just takes me back to my days in Etosha, where I considered it my home because I spent more time here than anywhere else. It was only 8 days a month, but everywhere else I was only a day or two. So we used to work 9 months on, 3 months off. So these young guides that complain about a 6-week stint, you guys can stick around. We used to have to do proper work, and we used to have to put up tents, cook food, drive, guide, shop, everything. Whereas mostly nowadays it's all done for you. Anyway, that's I was mostly into overlanding in the beginning, and then went on to 4x4 camping safaris. But lots of work, but lots to gain with the areas that I visited, especially here in Etosha. So as always, slowly heading towards the end of the show. So lots of thanks to you, especially to the viewers for jumping on board with us. And the whole Wild Earth team. Of course, there's lots that happens behind the scenes, and we've got the easy job as the naturalists. Just watch the animals and talk nonsense, as I always say. But I hope we don't talk too much nonsense, and it's quite relevant, the topics that we cover, because the ecological concepts are important, and it's nice to learn something. And I always learn something every time I'm out there. So today, it looks like, for now, there's not going to be any more rain in Etosha. They have had good rain, so that's not such a bad thing, and I'm hoping that it starts drying out, and then we'll have a lot more animals here next to the waterhole, especially those big herds of the largest elephants in the world. But it looks like one of the Gemsbok, the Gamsebok, he wants to head into the middle and have himself a bit of a swim while he has a drink. It helps cool him down as well. He is in the desert after all, so it's a nice reprieve from the heat. So folks, what is next? Well, there is the Sunset Safari coming up later on this afternoon, and then of course tomorrow we get to do it all over again. So what does the bush hold in store for us? Well, you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. That's it from me for now, folks. Bye.